I did this kind of a awareness tribute session a few days ago for my mum. This was with some friends and colleagues, and I just wanted to share what happened, really. So my mum died a year ago, as you know, and well, she was 72 when she died. She'd grown up in the 60s, a full-on summer of love child, big Elvis Presley fan. And I remember she told this story about how she met my dad. This was in the university, and she was with a bunch of friends in the library. They were messing around, and she pointed to the door and said, "I'm going to marry the next guy that walks through that door." And in walks my dad. And her friends all burst out laughing. They're like, "This guy, really?" And but 3 years down the line, they got married. So more fool them. And my dad was a lecturer. He got a placement in Toronto, and they moved to Canada for a year. And when they moved back from Canada to the UK, they bought a house for £4,950. My mum would proudly tell me. And I mean, it was listed for 4,900, but that £50 that she borrowed from her dad really sealed the deal. And we'd laugh about that, £50. That's not even a round of drinks today. Can't get a decent pair of shoes for that now, or you can't fill up your car for £50 anymore. Anyway, it was our family home for years. A lovely house with scrapes and scuffs and memories. And I remember there was a gap in the dining room where the piano used to be. And my mum eventually caved in, and she bought a guitar for me and my brother each. And we were no Eric Clapton or anything, but I remember her sitting with us and sitting with me and showing me how to do the chords to "Are You Lonesome Tonight?" This was after she'd shown me Elvis and "Love Me Tender" for the first time. And in the blink of an eye, I'd grown up, moved out, started my own life, met my partner. We bought a house for 100 times as much as my mum and dad bought theirs for. And I hope to create as many fond memories as I had from my childhood. And maybe it was the silence and the space at home. But once me and my brother moved out, my dad moved out as well. My mum was on her own then. I mean, completely capable. She was a survivor, a real survivor. She had cancer twice. But, she was on her own. And that silence, after the buzz of a house, a family life, that silence can make you question your hearing, really. That saying of, "Listen, I can't hear anything." Amazing, isn't it? But it's not amazing if there's no dialogue at all anymore. So that's when my mum turned to the internet. And she'd always been tech savvy, my mum. She worked at a computer company when me and my brother were in high school. It meant that we'd get home from school and there was no one there for the first time in our lives. But it did mean we could jump over our neighbour's garden as a shortcut through into our house. So we make sure we get home for Dog Tanyan or Cities of Gold on TV. We weren't supposed to do that, but we did it anyway, of course. I think it was in the first couple of years that she discovered internet dating as well. And I'd only discovered about that because the ill-fated Gary evening, which we were not to talk about. Suffice to say, Gary Barlow, he was not, even though his picture said otherwise. But that should have been the warning she needed, really. Because eventually we discovered she got into competitions. And she was convinced she was on the verge of some big cash prize. And that gap where the piano had been, it was filling up with hundreds of pounds worth of books and CDs, homeware, stuff she didn't need. So many purchases she made, just thinking they kept her in with a chance to win a big win. And she never got a big win. She checks in the post sometimes, but they were always marked subtly in the corner, sample only. But by then, the fraudsters are all over her. They're corresponding several times a day. She'd won a competition. She needed a psychic, or she had to send a small fee to guarantee something from somewhere. And looking back on it, I do think it was driven by the same motivation. That motivation I'd seen right from the start in my life. The love for her children, the overwhelming desire to give them the best. Whether it's a guitar or enough money to not have to worry about mortgages anymore. And we tried to explain this to her, but there were fraudsters trying to snap her out of it. But we came at it from another angle of, we're good, man. We don't need the money. We're fine. But she goes on still, targeted by hundreds, if not thousands, of fraudsters, and it filled her day, patiently filling in the letters, keeping track of all the competitions from all the countries, using all the tricks. And how many hundreds of times was she a guaranteed winner? Was there ever a letter she didn't need to respond to immediately? Eventually the stress broke her. Her health got worse. She felt at a loss, being unable to keep up with all the constant communications that made her worse. The letters piled up in sacks while she sat in hospital, still receiving messages on her phone, sometimes from her son abroad without money, whilst her real sons are sat next to her. That memory straying to our old house, the in-jokes, the care, the love. Afterwards, my dad moved back into the family home. And one night I found him sitting, listening to Are You Lonesome Tonight? Still cherishing the memories, still missing her deeply, still hurting with a mixture of loss and anger. So a year on, I decided to hold a session through a work call. But for everyone who knew her, really, to raise awareness and honor her memory. And the memory of others as well, like the other mums, other dads, other loved ones. I was going to finish the session with a reading, something that would have made her smile. Are you lonesome tonight? No, I thought, why not? It's touching, fitting. Are you lonesome tonight? Do you miss me tonight? Are you sorry we drifted apart? Does your memory stray to a bright summer day when I kissed you and called you sweetheart? Then I pictured myself coming off a skateboard about 5 or 6 years old, and my mum scooping me up and calling out for Savlon and a plaster and kissing me on the forehead, saying, it'll be all right, sweetheart. And I just couldn't go on. 136 people on a Teams call watching a grown man just sob. And then it happened. Someone came off mute and said, do the chairs in your parlour seem empty and bare? And then someone else came in. Do you gaze at your doorstep and picture me there? More people came in. Is your heart filled with pain? Shall I come back again? And then it just felt like everyone, tell me, dear, are you lonesome tonight? And it was amazing. Everyone singing this together. I mean, it sounded ridiculous because everyone's coming on top of each other. The internet connections coming in and out, and it absolutely butchered Elvis. It sounded ridiculous, but I think she would have loved that. I think she would have loved it. She would have found that funny. And I'll never lose the feeling of that moment. I've lost too much to fraud already.